Welcome once again to the Cow Report. My name is Chuck Lee. I'm your host as usual. And with me as usual, we've got a little, looks like I've been in Florida for a few months here with that tan, Fred, but that could just be the adjustments. We'll get everything straightened out. Of course, this is the Cow Report, Fred, and we're glad to see you again. Glad to see that you could make it today.
Good afternoon, listeners.
And you made it on time for a change.
Hiya, Chuck. You bet your sweet life.
I don't know where you've been. Come in 5 minutes till 10 at night. Some kind of night owl or something. But as usual, Fred, we got a lot to talk about.
You bet.
And this is Monday, September 26th, 1994. It's a cool afternoon up here in northern Wisconsin, northwestern Wisconsin, Fred. It hasn't even broke into the 50s as far as I know.
47.
That's cool. It's finally autumn, Fred.
Mm-hmm.
And you know there's some disturbing news coming out from around the country of a lot of 11, 12, 13-year-old girls disappearing this time of year.
Mm-hmm.
And some theorists are saying that it's part of the changing of the seasons, and this is a time when virgins are used in sacrifices in witchcraft and that type of thing, Fred. So that could be tying in with some of these disappearances. That girl down in southeastern...
With a girl who was riding a bicycle there near her grandmother's house in Waiawega.
Didn't you get some disturbing news about
Yes, her body was pierced with sticks, and there was no blood in the body. They had drained the blood out of the body.
Sounds like some kind of ritual stuff, Fred.
And in addition to that, she was sexually molested.
Well, you know, Saturday night I was listening to a Cleveland station, and it sounded almost like it was coming from northern Illinois or southern Wisconsin, but it was out in Cleveland. Almost the same thing happened to a 12-year-old girl out there over the last few days. So there are witch covens, and not all witches are into this, and probably just a minute minority, Fred, but there are some groups out there that are actually sacrificing humans.
Yes.
Human adults and human babies and what they call virgins, you know. So it is a very serious thing. And we had some other disturbing news, Fred. We had a little gang warfare in Eau Claire over the weekend.
Yes.
And that's not a good thing to hear. They're saying that both of the individuals that were involved were from the cities, but it's disturbing to the Hmong community, Fred, because...
Picture is a little dark.
Yeah. It's disturbing to the Hmong community, Fred, because I've talked to some of the Hmong leaders, and they say that the kids don't want to follow the old ways from Laos. They want the American way, the flashy cars, the clothes, the drugs, the guns, and everything that go along with it. And some of these kids are getting involved in Asian gangs in Wausau, La Crosse, Eau Claire, Minneapolis, St. Paul. And it's getting to be now where it's spilled over into Eau Claire, and we had a shooting here.
Yes.
What do you think about that?
Well, it's too bad. It's unfortunate that this is happening, and I can understand why it's happening, but I think the kids are wrong not to follow their parents.
Yeah, it's true. But, you know, the old ways in Laos, a lot of their ways, they were hundreds of years behind us in their certain practices and rituals, but in other ways, it was a very close-knit family, and they didn't go in for this stuff. Now that they've become Americanized, they're taking on the ways of the white man.
We have the TV and the media and the schools to thank for some of these things.
Well, Fred, as you know, on this program, we try and stump the stars. And you know that we haven't been able to stump you. You're batting 1,000 here for weeks now, going into months.
Yes, probably today is the day.
But first, before we get into that, I wanted to let the viewers know that on our October 3rd 9 p.m. show, right here on Cable Channel 11, Public Access, the head of Wisconsin Term Limits will be here, Fred.
Mm-hmm.
His name is Mike Riley, and he's from Milwaukee, and he's going to be driving 4.5, 5-hour drive, whatever it is, up here to be on the show October 3rd at 9 p.m. So be aware of that and tune in. That's October 3rd, Monday evening. The Wisconsin Term Limits chapter, Milwaukee chapter, or state chapter president. And there is a move on nationwide on term limits, Fred, and I
Yes.
guess 11 states have already instituted that, and other
They
states are
passed
working on it.
legislation
Yeah.
supporting it.
And, you know, to make it seem fair, though, it should almost be national, because you'll have a congressman coming from Wisconsin that can serve 30 years, and another one from a term limit state that'll only be able to serve 6 or 8. And so it makes the seniority thing and all that unfair. So it has to be uniform nationwide. Okay, Fred, we're going to ask you a question, and then you can dive right into that piece of the literature that you've been fondling over there. And it must be something pretty important, because you keep lifting up, getting ready to talk about it. So I'm going to see if I can stump you here, Fred. Of course, today's date is September 26th, so we'll start with today's date, Fred, and we'll see if we can catch you off guard here. Now, you didn't look over here while I was in the other room, did you?
No,
Okay, you don't know the answers.
no.
This is not the $64,000 question, right?
Well, then I'm not going to answer it.
The producers in the back room there, Chris and Cliff Economaki, didn't pull you in the corner and offer you some money and give you the answers, did they?
No, 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 not yet.
Okay. Roy Rogers Hoff didn't get you downtown there and
No,
buy,
no,
buy you a drink or something.
no.
All right. On this date, September 26th, Fred, the year was 1960. There was two famous gentlemen vying for the presidency. Now, they used national TV for the first time to do this. What was it?
That was the Nixon-Kennedy debates.
That's right, 1960, September 26th, probably 7, 8 o'clock at night. I don't know. Back then they probably thought 6 o'clock was late, but it was an evening debate, and that's where Nixon showed off his stubble and his sweaty lip and lost the debate. And that's where Kennedy turned the tide and went on to win,
Well,
because of the looks factor.
Kennedy won because Nixon didn't challenge the election, number one, because even the corpses in the cemeteries down in Chicago voted. I don't know how they managed that, but more people than lived in some districts actually voted.
Wasn't Mayor Daley in charge back then?
Yes.
Yeah, he had quite a machine. Now his
And,
son
the
is
word-
carrying on the tradition down there now.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're using the old cemetery trick, but I'm sure they get the vote out.
Yeah, because a friend of mine, there was a Democratic district captain, and he got ordered to vote so many votes for John F. Kennedy. And he voted more. That was more than the people lived in the district.
Well, Fred, I lived in about 200 miles south of there, and I remember back when in the glove compartment they would have a little coupon for a turkey or a $5 bill or whatever, and after you voted, you reached in the glove compartment and you got your little certificate. It was good for a turkey or a bottle of booze or whatever. And that's how they got out the vote down there. I don't think they do that nowadays, though, do they, Fred?
Well, I wouldn't be a bit surprised.
You think the old machines are still working in some of these parts of the country?
I think so. You know, I lived in the New York area for a number of years, and I heard and I saw some things. And I remember Bobby Kennedy going around with that black bag and going into Democratic district clubs and coming out. And I asked a friend of mine who was a president of one of those clubs, what has Bobby Kennedy got in that black bag? And he looked at me, he says, money. I said, what do you mean money? He carries money there. And I says, how's your club going to vote? You told me you're not going to vote for Jack Kennedy. Well, he says, I thought so. He says, you know, I'm the president of the club. I says, what happened? He says, the executive board voted to accept $25,000 and throw their support to Jack. They were going to support somebody else.
The money didn't have anything to do with their decision, though, did it?
Oh, no, not at all.
Okay.
As long as it was green.
Yeah. Well, just checking there, Fred. But you know, these go packs and all that stuff, the Republicans, Democrats, all this soft money, it's the same deal, Fred. Now it's just a little more legitimate advertised and it goes into
Well,
a bank account and then
you-
it's funneled out to the right
you,
people.
You know, I believe that we've got to have some of those PACs. The only way you're going to be able to answer the National Education Association or the Wisconsin Education Association and the unions who independently put advertisements and phone banks and everything for a candidate which is not charged against the candidate.
Mm-hmm.
So how are you going to answer those people if you don't have some money coming from elsewhere?
Why not just outlaw the whole thing?
I don't think you're going to be able to do it.
Give each candidate a certain block of time on TV, radio, and a certain amount of advertising in the papers, and then let them be creative and come up with the best ads or the best newspaper ads, radio, TV ads, and get it a level playing field. Now look at Herb Kohl, multi-millionaire, probably pushing billionaire by now. At least he's worth $250,000 or $250 million that he admits to himself. He can buy an election anywhere in this country. He chose to buy an election in Wisconsin. Every day you turn on the news, Channel 12, or Channel 13 at 12, 6, and 10, there's Herb Kohl running an ad. Those aren't free. Those are $200, $300 ads.
I know.
And they're day after day for months now. And it's going to go on for a couple more months, all the way up till November. He's buying this race just like Perot tried to buy it on the national level.
Well,
If you can eliminate that and get down to just the facts, like what's his name used to say on Dragnet, just the facts, ma'am. Get away from all this hype and what money could buy, Fred, and get down to a level playing field, then you don't have to have the federal government step in.
Well, it's ironic that when Herb Kohl ran the last time, he ran against Robert Kasten. And Robert Kasten was a pretty good legislator. And it's unfortunate that the people voted him out and voted for Mr. Kohl.
Well, that goes to show you what money can buy, Fred.
Well, the people, see, the unfortunate part about it is I wish more people would read good publications, because if you depend on the Eau Claire Leader Telegram and some of the national magazines or the Milwaukee Journal, the Capital Times, even the Washington Post or the New York Times, you're going to get the liberal line on everything, what they want you to think. Now,
Well, Fred, let's shift gears here. Now, you had something there you've been eagerly awaiting to speak about, so go ahead.
Now, Mary Senander to speak at Eau Claire's Rally for Life. October the 9th, 2 p.m. at Regis High School Auditorium, Eau Claire chapter of Wisconsin Right to Life will be hosting the Rally for Life 94. Each year, this event tracks hundreds of pro-lifers, and this year, Rally for Life will be of particular interest because the topic will be you. The guest speaker will be Mary Senander, one of the country's most prominent experts on the subject of euthanasia, so-called mercy killings. On numerous occasions, Mrs. Senander has appeared on TV programs such as the McNeil-Lehrer 700 Club, CNN, Sally Jesse Raphael Show, Point of View, Focus on the Family, Dr. James Kennedy, and others. She's also debated euthanasia advocates, including Derek Humphrey and Jack Kevorkian, several times. So the people who are listening, we urge them to attend.
So what's that date again and where at?
September 9th at Regis High School, 2 p.m. October 9th, rather. October 9th.
And that's on a Sunday, probably?
That's a Sunday afternoon.
At 2 p.m.
Right.
Meet at
Regis High School Auditorium.
Okay. Most people should know where Regis is at, Fred.
Right. That's
right off Hastings Way there.
Hastings Way, and I can't think of the name of the street now.
No, that's the annual
Fenwick, I think.
pro-life rally, and
right.
Then will they have the march again down on Menominee Street?
I don't know. They didn't last year. They didn't have a march, you know.
Did they kind of gather down there like they usually do, though?
Well, they were lined up the street with signs.
Okay.
Hastings Way, Highway 53.
Will they be doing that again this year?
I don't know.
They probably will, Fred. There was close to 1,000 people that lined up last year. I'm sure they're just not going to drop that. That seems to be fairly successful. Okay, Fred. I wanted to remind people that we are taking calls, and the number is 839-5067. This is a live program, and you can call the cow phone and get your questions across to us. And the phones are ringing now, Fred, and we have a bevy of beautiful broads in the other room. They're answering the phones. Fred.
Beautiful what?
Women.
Well, that sounds better.
All right. Oh, I forgot. This is you're the PC cop on the set here. I forgot about that. Okay, Fred. Betty, of beautiful women
All right.
in the other room answering the
Much
phone.
better. That's much better. Got to show the ladies respect.
And they're eagerly waiting to take your calls. And I'm going to adjust the microphone here because it slipped out.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we have a call waiting, Fred, so we might as well see what we got here on the line. Whoops. Whoops, I guess we missed those. Okay, Fred.
The UN...
Wait a minute.
The United
Wait a minute.
Nations
You just
on-
had one there.
The
It's my
United
turn.
Nations on September 16th suspended observer status of the International Lesbian and Gay Association, which allowed ILGA to participate in meetings and conferences because the group would not vouch that member associations did not advocate pedophilia.
Okay, Fred, we're just going to ignore that because it wasn't your turn. So, here's what we're going to discuss now, Fred.
Crime-
League of Women Voters, excuse me, Fred. The League of Women Voters of Eau Claire County have sent out a news release, September 20th, 1994, that came from Women's Studies. It was faxed out of the Women's Studies. I don't know if that's from UW Eau Claire or where that came from, but they used that fax machine for the League of Women Voters of Eau Claire to fax this fax out. And the League of Women Voters, here's what it says, League of Women Voters of Eau Claire County, is the title, press release. The League of Women Voters and the Western Wisconsin Press Club will co-sponsor a debate between 3rd Congressional District candidates Steve Gunderson and Harvey Stour. The debate will be held on Monday, October 17th at North High School Auditorium, Eau Claire, Wisconsin. The debate will begin at 7 p.m. No tickets or reservations are required. The debate is open to the public. However, they should be aware that no political signs, buttons, or clothing supporting one candidate or the other will be allowed in the auditorium. A separate table outside the auditorium will be available for candidates to place campaign literature. And the contact people are Stacy Dibble, Debbie Kappas, and Penny Graham. Now, these are people from the Western Wisconsin Press Club and the League of Women Voters, and they have joined together to call a so-called debate for the 3rd Congressional District. Unfortunately, Fred, they forgot one of the candidates.
They did.
That's right. And so,
I thought they forgot two.
well, they did. They forgot two. They've had a pre-election election amongst the stalwarts of the freedom of press and freedom of the election process. Those two groups, the League of Women Voters of Eau Claire County and the Western Wisconsin Press Club, which is Bob Brown and Bob Brown from the Leader Telegram and Terry Bell from Channel 13, they have decided that they are going to have a pre-election election, and they have eliminated two of the candidates, Fred. Isn't that nice of them?
Yeah.
So here we have the League of Women Voters, which stands for freedom in the political process.
No, I don't.
And listening to all sides, Fred.
I don't think they stand for freedom at all because it's a biased liberal organization.
And being fair and being honest and getting all sides out on an issue, the League of Women Voters have conspired with the Western Wisconsin Press Club, which is the bastion of free speech and freedom of the press. Those two groups have conspired together.
Those are the two groups that give us a doctored version of the news.
So those two groups have conspired together, Fred, to eliminate two of the candidates from the 3rd Congressional District race, and so that they can narrow it down to the two liberal candidates that they can stomach to have their so-called fair debate. Now, what I'm calling for is to include me. I'm a candidate. I'm in this race to win. I'm not in it just to be in just to get my name out, Fred. I'm in this race to win. In a four-way race, I can win. I'm one of the major candidates. There used to be 8. Now there's 4. We've got the liberal media in Western Wisconsin, and we got the left-wing League of Women Voters, headed by Penny Graham, conspiring to keep me out of this race and to sabotage my campaign.
Keep you out of the debate.
Well, by keeping me out of the debate, they're keeping me out of the media, because the media will be covering that debate. So they are conspiring to
why don't you go?
deny me of my civil
Why
rights,
don't
Fred.
Why don't you go up there and sit up there where the speakers are going to be?
Well, Fred, I have a taped message at home from Terry Bell from the Western Wisconsin Press Club inviting me to this debate. So as far as I'm concerned, I've been invited and I will attend. And I will be on the podium. And it's up to them whether they're going to give me my equal access to the electoral process.
When is this taking place?
October 17th, Monday night, North High School. Now, if the viewers would like to complain about this situation, they can complain to the Channel 13's Terry Bell. You can call him right at the station. Bob Brown at the Leader Telegram. The phone numbers are in the phone book. Stacy Dibble, I don't know if she's with the League of Women Voters or the Leader Telegram or where, but her number is 836-9219. Debbie Kappas, her number is 832-0456. And Penny Graham, 835-4900. That's her home number.
And the debate is where?
And her other number is 836-5717. That's her work number. Now, those are the main conspirators to eliminate two of the candidates from the debating process, Fred. And they're trying to give excuses about time limits, but when there's only 4 candidates, right here on public access, Fred, we had 6 candidates in here. We ran it just like a Gatling gun, one right after another. We got all 6 of them in. We put questions to them. They answered them. We had 6 candidates in here, and it ran very smoothly.
Where's this debate?
I've told you 3 times, Fred. North High School, auditorium.
Okay.
We're on the air here, Fred.
Okay.
October 17th, Monday night.
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock. Okay, so the thing is, if you think that I should have equal access to the debating process, please call the League of Women Voters or the Western Wisconsin Press Club, and the main contact people would be Terry Bell, who's already invited me to the debate. He's at Channel 13, and the other lead conspirator is Penny Graham, and her home number is 835-4900. And ask them why they're denying me access to the electoral process and to media coverage in this debate and in other places. And of all people, Fred, Western Wisconsin Press Club should be the first one to defend my right to free speech and to having equal access to the media and to the debating process. Because after all, they are a bastion of First Amendment free speech rights, the Western Wisconsin Press Club. So, that was a press release that I got clandestinely from high-up sources in the media elite here in the area. Okay, I got a Xerox copy of it, Fred, and I wasn't supposed to see it, but I did. So there you have it. All right, Fred, now it's your turn. What have you got there?
From the Wanderer, a Catholic lay paper from St. Paul. News notes on page 3. Crime and punishment. A Seattle state trooper, is facing a possible FBI investigation, and he may lose his job because he tried to counsel a couple against having an abortion. An 18-year-old girl and a 20-year-old boyfriend were speeding to an abortion facility where a state trooper pulled them over for driving too fast. When the couple told the trooper they were late for their appointment at the clinic, he spent 90 minutes trying to dissuade them, even offering to cut the cost of the speeding ticket. The experience rattled the couple, said their attorney, Frank Schoscher, who complained to Planned Parenthood, which then reported the incident to the Washington State Patrol. As the FBI determines whether or not the trooper violated the couple's civil rights, the state police are considering firing the trooper.
So what's that got? What are you bringing that up for? What's the gist of it all, Fred?
Well,
what's it mean?
That's depriving, first of all, that girl was going to murder the baby that she conceived.
Yeah.
If she didn't want a child, all she had to do was abstain. She wouldn't have had one.
Okay, so she didn't abstain and she had a baby.
And this is depriving that trooper of his civil rights.
To do what?
The freedom of speech.
All right.
So advising them what it was.
Okay.
That abortion is not good.
Okay. All right. Well, we just had Roy Rogers Hoff come into the side of the the viewing area, and that's why I have to look over this way because I can't see him. But anyway, he's urgently telling me that we have a call on one of the lines, so we'll try this one. Now, hopefully, Roy and the girls back there got it straight this time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, go ahead, caller. You're on the air.
See, I'd like to just reiterate here about something 3-4 nights ago in the Eau Claire paper that showed this gentleman down in Durand leading the people from that area down there because they were letting this man out of prison because he committed a sex violation.
Yeah. Hello?
Hello.
Yeah, go ahead. The mic was off.
The Bible says he is without sin, let him cast the first stone. The gentleman that led all those people down there got himself into a lot of problems with the old American National Bank and lost his job. Then he went down there and went to teaching school. So who is he to start hollering about other people? If a man served his time, seems to me that the state knows what they're doing. They let someone out on parole. The state would be to blame if anything happened again, and you have to give the guy a chance, I would say.
Well, if you're looking for somebody to blame, you can blame Tommy Thompson. He handpicks that
But I see
parole board.
Tommy Thompson give all the country clubs a big tax break.
Yeah, I've seen that ad starting to run now, and there's anytime somebody's in office that long, they tend to make friends and enemies, and you try and reward your friends and punish your enemies. That's the old saying, and so that's what Tommy's done. He's rewarded people that have helped him, and he's...
Getting up there, we're all looking forward to you being up there.
Well, thank you, because first of all, I'm not going to take any of the special interest money or PAC money, because I'm introducing a bill to outlaw it all, and the House has been pretty good at stalling all that kind of legislation. The Senate's went into some kind of reforms in that area, but the House is just dragging their feet because they like all those perks. They like that $130,000-$140,000 they're making, and they like all the perks that go with being out there, and they're treated like potentates and princes out there. If you take away some of the fluff and make them get down to work and make them do it all in 6 months instead of dragging their feet and not getting anything done until the last couple of weeks, then all of a sudden they want to get in a hurry and pass legislation. The rest of the time they just drag their feet and posture to see who can be the chairman or the vice chairman of this vast menagerie of different committees. They want to posture to see who can be the head of each one of these committees, because that's where they get their public exposure to the press and the media. You know, if you're holding an important committee position, you get all the coverage and you get all the perks and you get all the money flowing your way because they know that you're the one to influence. So we cut out all this influence peddling, that's what they used to call it. And there's legalized bribery. We get down to business and start passing.
System where they could flow checks too, that was kind of nice.
Yeah, they had their own little private banking system there, and they also had a little stamp scheme going there that Rostenkowski got his foot caught in that door, and they're going to find out how many stamps he actually had. But legally, my opponent, Steve Gunderson, has taken $126,000 worth of free stamps to mail out propaganda to you and I, and I haven't gotten any $126,000. You know, the only right thing to do would be for Mr. Gunderson is to write a check back to the federal government for $126,000. That's just for the stamps, let alone the 2 or 3 times that he spent on staff and everything else to manage that mailing list and get that stuff mailed out in the printing. It doubles or triples that cost. So he's one of the big spenders when it comes to sending out mass mailings to you and I to let us know how great he is. But when you look at his record, you see otherwise.
Well, you hang in there. I think you're going to beat it myself. You look like a good, straight up, right-side guy, you know.
Well, I've had my problems in life too, but I'm going to give it a try. I got
good luck.
got a degree in political science, and I'd like to use it. I've been on the other side helping candidates get elected for years, and I'd like to work this side of the fence for a while.
That's good. Okay, partner.
Well, thanks for calling in. We appreciate those kind of calls, Fred. All right, Fred, I got something to bring up here now. You've already brought up your thing here, so it's my turn. Now, cool down there, Fred. This is the cow report.
You're doing all the talking, though.
I'm bringing up something here, and you can talk. This is my show. All right. Fred, you know what's happening over there in India, right? Have you paid attention to what's going on in India?
Well, I'm not following that too closely, to be very
See?
frank with you.
I ought to ask you another question. Get your mind working here. Okay, Fred, September 27th. You're still batting 1,000. On this date, on tomorrow's date, September 27th.
What year?
Well, I've got 4 different years to ask you, and you promised now that you haven't looked at this. So these are cold questions, and we're just
Let's go.
We're using your mental abilities in history. All right. 1945, Fred.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're going to skip that one, Fred. That's too easy for you.
That was the end of World War II?
No, not exactly. 1964, Fred.
Yes.
10 months.
That was a good year.
10 months after the Kennedy assassination. Lee Harvey Oswald's dead. Jack Ruby's in jail.
Yes.
There was a report that came out. Some people say it was a massive whitewash of what happened in Dallas on that date. What was the name of that report?
The Warren Commission report?
That's right. That's exactly right, Fred. You're still batting 1,000 after all these years. How many years has it been now? We've been on this show.
Not very long.
Okay. Now, what have you got there, Fred?
Well, the American Family Association has a nice book, a coloring book for, well, it's a cartoon book. And it says God's Quiet Voice. It's available from the American Family Association. 1 to 9 copies, $2. 50 copies, 75 cents a piece. And it goes in and talks about some things, teaching the kids right from wrong.
And what grade level is that kind of geared to?
Well, it's for the
8th grade or so?
I would no. It's for kids, you know, in the elementary grades.
Well, what are they exactly dealing with there?
Well,
What kind of issues?
because pornography is one.
Well, you know, Fred, you know that the most media, like the print media, writes stories at an 8th grade level. So I'm sure a lot of people could enjoy that if they consider that our whole country's on an 8th grade level. Then we'd all probably enjoy that cartoon, because a lot of people like pictures. They can't read too well, but they can get something out of the pictures. And they say a picture is worth 1,000 words, Fred. But I'm sure that there's some good issues in there. That comes from the nonprofit American Family Association.
Right,
so
and that's in Tupelo, Mississippi.
we're not trying to sell books on here, but they can get a hold of you off the air if they want to get some copies of that. Right, Fred?
Right.
Okay, I think we're going to try. We had a little technical difficulty with our last call, and it might have been just a low voice, but we're going to see if we got another caller here. Go ahead, caller. John.
How you doing, Chuck?
All right.
Yeah, I just got a comment about the pornography.
Okay.
And my friends would like to sit down and beat off the...
Okay, Fred. I'm glad we have caller ID. That way we can identify people that want to use this as a forum for swearing or whatever, Fred. This is a clean program. We don't want to tolerate that. We will take pretty much any question or comment that you have that you'd like to give us on the air, but we just ask that you keep it clean and speak in English. This is the United States. And there is a movement for English first, Fred.
Yes.
And so we like to have nice, clean English, at least at an 8th grade or above level. So we will be taking another call in a minute here, Fred, but now we're going to get down to what's going on in India. This is very serious, Fred. Some people say it could have repercussions just like out of the Old Testament.
The plague, they got the plague over there?
They've got the old Black Plague is showing up in of all places, and a dangerous place because of the sea of humanity over there, Fred, is this plague that is surfacing now in India. And part of that, Fred, is that India is a very poor country, so they've had to call on Israel, who knows something about plagues and what's those things, sieges, where they used to...
Yes.
Well, plagues were a common thing in Israel and the kingdoms back in the Old Testament because a lot of sieges were put on, and what would happen is it would get down to just rats, mice, a few rodents that were left to eat because everything else was eaten, including in one case where they had to eat a baby.
Oh.
And one woman said to the other woman, "We'll eat your baby today and we'll eat mine tomorrow." So they had a feast of the one baby on one day. Well, that woman disappeared the next day with her baby because she didn't want to kill her baby, but she talked the other woman into. That's how bad things have gotten in sieges. Well, this is not really a siege in Bombay, but it is or in India, but it's in a city called Surat, which is the diamond and silk capital of India. And there's a massive boom going on in that town because of because people are coming in from the countryside, because of the commerce that's going on. So there's shanty towns that have grown up, Fred.
Yes.
And these shanty towns are just built on wastewater and sewage and garbage and shacks, no electricity, no clean water. Just thousands of people squished in there together. And well, then all of a sudden, because of the earthquakes that they've had in there, they've had rats that have scurried through the ruins of the earthquakes and have been able to multiply at a fantastic rate. Well, rats carry fleas. Fleas carry this bubonic black plague. And we had, back in, the 14th century, it almost wiped out Europe. And in the Old Testament, there's many cases of the plague. The New Testament in the book of Revelation talks about plagues and pestilence as well. This one has broke out in India, Fred, and so far has killed at least 50 people that they've admitted to, and 45, I guess, in the city, famous for artificial silk and polished diamonds. And it's triggered a mass exodus, Fred. 300,000 people have fled. So what are you doing? You're spreading the disease. 300,000 people leaving that area from the city of Savannah, leaving in all directions, including
if the rats and mice were leaving, I'd be more concerned.
Well, including they're coming to the United States. Matter of fact, at the airports in New York, they're not stopping people coming in from India to test them. They're just handing them a card and saying, well, if you get sick, call us. That's what they're doing. So they're letting people come into India. Now, the Middle East, Iran, Iraq, these countries, they've already started putting up barriers to Indians because they have a lot of Indian laborers in the Middle East. So they're getting nervous now that this thing can spread into the Middle East. And because of the unsanitary conditions around the world, Fred,
they're probably coming here to start some more casinos.
Well, I don't know about that, Fred, but Indians do travel, Fred. It's not that backward of a country. Now, what happened in India was, Fred, years ago they quit making the simple antibiotic that will kill this disease because there was no outbreaks. And so now they're calling on Israel to bring in some medical supplies. And it says here, doctors say rat fleas effectively carry the virus of bubonic plague that could develop into pneumonic plague. So they're using a cyanide gas, Fred, to kill millions of rats. They're going to use cyanide. They're going to use this gas to gas out millions of rats, infesting Bombay slums, because Bombay has 13 million people in it, Fred. And if that thing starts spreading in there, they don't have 13 million doses of this cheap antibiotic, and you probably have to take more than one dose, so you're talking millions of doses that they don't have. And India itself is rapidly pushing towards 1 billion people. So if this thing gets out of hand, they're worried about getting into Africa and the Middle East. They're worried about people hopping on planes and spreading this thing all over the world. So, Fred, the question is, what do you think about it?
I think you ought to take that telephone call on line 2.
So you don't have any suggestions on what to do about this, huh?
Well, you've already given us them.
Okay, Fred. And they're even having house-to-house searches to find people with any symptoms of the plague. They want to stop it, but go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Yeah, I have a question. What are your views on certain subjects?
Like which one?
Well, anything. What are you running for?
I'm running for the United States Congress, 3rd Congressional District, state of Wisconsin, which is held now by Representative Steve Gunderson.
Okay, so what are you for and what are you against while you're running?
Well, I've got about 15, 16 issues that I'm dealing with. The Leader Telegram and other media, they tend to avoid those issues and they just want to kick around the same old issue. But I have plenty of issues I'm running on, and one of them is fiscal responsibility, trying to level the budget so that we can get things in order. Another is to reduce federal taxes by at least 10%. So they've done this in New Jersey just recently, Fred, and they're creating 6,000 jobs a month in New Jersey from just one little tax rebate there. Cut. Just think what that would happen if you could cut taxes just 10% in 1 year on the national level. We'd have a boom in economy. It would just explode. I'm against things like RU 486 being flooded into this country because we hand these pills to young women and say, okay, here, you can have your own abortion at home. Just take these pills and then go home and wait for the baby to die within you, and then you can expel it in your own bathroom. So we're creating many abortion clinics in a lot of bathrooms in this country once that stuff hits the streets. I'm against this BGH in the milk. The milk, people will drink milk and milk products, cheese and cottage cheese and all that stuff, as long as they consider it safe and the integrity of it is upheld, and we don't know exactly what this BGH, how it's going to affect us. It is affecting the cows that are being injected with it. Some of them are dying, some of them are having their veins are breaking open inside of them, and they're bleeding to death. It's one group has said it's a crack for cows. It's like crack cocaine. It makes the cows produce more milk in an unnatural state. It increases their production, but it also takes a toll on the cows. Increases mastitis, which ends up with pus in the milk. They say they can get that out, but because they'll have to inject the cow with antibiotics, and we end up with traces of antibiotics in our milk that we drink, in our food products, and it's not only in the milk and cheese, but this gets into the muscles and the tissue of the cow. So when that cow is slaughtered for hamburgers down at your local hamburger joint, you end up eating the synthetic hormone in the meat products too. So one guy tried to tell me that's why we have all these 7-foot basketball players running around, because this hormone is affecting people. I don't know if that's true or not, but it was rushed into production and use in this country, and because Monsanto is the only one that can produce it and sell it in this country, it makes you wonder why people like Representative Steve Gunderson have taken large amounts of PAC money from Monsanto. Monsanto has also spread the money around on the state level to senators, representatives, and even to state agencies like the Department of Agriculture in this state. So there's questions on why Monsanto is the only one allowed to push this, and they seem to have pushed it into the marketplace quicker than a lot of people would want. And the good news is that only 2 to 5% of the farmers are using it in Wisconsin. That's the good news. And even though they've been browbeaten by other farmers that are using it, and by tactics from Monsanto, freebies and videos and everything, it hasn't caught on. So the best thing for Monsanto to do is pull it from the market, do some more testing on it to see exactly what the effects are. So that's some of the issues. Also, I'd like to increase help to the family farmers. The family farm, there's a farm bill that's going to be worked on next year. That's a 5-year bill. It's kind of like the old central planning in Russia, Fred. You know, they had the 5-year plans. Well, we've got a 5-year plan for agriculture. And some of the amendments I'd like to introduce, I call it the Family Farm Preservation Act of 1995, which will help the family farmers stay in business, the small grain farmers, help them with loans and grants, use retired senior citizens, retired farmers for mentors for the young farmers that are just coming up, so that we can kind of create like in baseball, you have the minor leagues where you create talent and then they bring them up to the majors. Well, we need to help create talent amongst the young farmers, encourage farmers to go in farming, because it's not a glamorous business anymore. Young kids don't want to go into it. They want to go into other kinds of endeavors, and so we need to encourage farming again as a lifetime occupation. And also organic farming. We put tons of poisons, pesticides, and fertilizers and things on the crops that we eat, and it gets into the residues. Finally, work their way down into the drinking water. It works their ways into the animals that eat off those grains. It works their ways into our tissue, Fred. And so we'd like to encourage and fund organic farming. And how do you do that? You take some of this foreign aid, what I call rat hole money, which just goes down these holes and you never see it again. In the case of Russia, they put it in one pocket, they take the money, and then they go build some more submarines and stuff. They're using our foreign aid money to keep their war machine going, and then they take all those armaments and they sell them to third world countries around the world and to finance wars. So we need to pull back some of that foreign aid money to take care of the United States, and for America first, Fred. And we've got problems in this country that if we just start working on them now, it's going to take 20 years to solve some of the problems with the drug addiction and all that, Fred. We've got major problems in this country, and if we don't start addressing them, we're not going to be able to send foreign aid money because this country will collapse from within. So that's just a few of the issues. I hope that helps you some.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, bye.
What do you think about that, Fred? You were going to mention something there.
Well, I think it's a good idea.
Which part?
All of it.
What do you think about all that foreign aid money that goes to
Well,
Russia?
I don't think we should be spending it. We can't afford to spend it. We're giving away money to countries, and a number of them have done unfriendly things in the UN as far as supporting what we wanted supported. And I think it's about time that we cut off this.
Well, if anyone watched 60 Minutes last night, they saw how the Russian mafia is in. If you come over there as a businessman and you try to set up a business, the Russian mafia, once they're cut, or people start winding up dead in alleys and stuff, or beat up, it's just the same as the old mafia thing here in this country. And so we're sending money over there to prop up
Yes.
that rotten system when we got our own system that's collapsing, Fred. We need more cops on the streets in this country, and that $30 billion federal crime bill, Fred, it's only going to affect 5% of the crime. That money needs to be given back down to,
it's only going to put another 20,000 officers on the street, and for every officer, I think it's going to have 2 social workers are going to be hired. And the social workers supposedly are going to help stop crime. But unfortunately, the social workers that we already have been unable to cope with this. The only thing we need to get back to basics.
Well, Fred,
we got 10 commandments, thou shalt not.
If you were up in Altoona the other night and bullets were flying around up there, and would you dial a social worker, or would you dial 911?
Yeah, 911.
Or would you go look for your shotgun and wait at the door to see if they're going to kick in your door and start shooting it up? You need to that's another issue that I firmly believe in, that not to give guns, not to have guns because, not to let gangs have guns, but and marauding bands of thugs like we had in Los Angeles during the riots, who just picked out innocent people, beat them up, slit their throats, shot them in the head and stuff. But we need, those people there, of all people, needed to have protection in their homes, protect their homes, their families, and their property. And that's one of the reasons that you have arms, is for self-protection, but other people like to have arms because they like to go target shoot, or they like to trap shoot. And other people like to hunt for meat, Fred. There still are people in this country that hunt, they like to shoot a deer, and they use that meat over the winter to get them through the winter.
Right.
So there are legitimate reasons to have guns, and so they need to dissect those legitimate reasons from the gang warfare that's going on and go after the gang warfare. Disarm the gangs. Don't disarm the farmers that are just trying to protect their farm and their family. Or somebody in Altoona, or somebody in Eau Claire. So, Fred, we're going to take another call here.
No.
Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Yeah, just comment a little bit about your BGH in the milk. I agree with you on some points, and that maybe we don't need BGH, but I think one thing that you have to be careful of is when you're talking about the milk shed and you're talking about antibiotics and pus in the milk, if you want to help American farmers and the Wisconsin farmers, you have to start letting people know that milk isn't an evil, that there's not a lot of these things in the milk shed. There's great lengths that are taken to make sure that there's not antibiotics in milk.
I know I've talked to some of the co-ops, and they say they test each tank that comes in off the farm, and they dump it.
Well, they test every, and then even if it's they test it again to make sure, and it is dumped. It's rare and almost impossible anymore for antibiotics to get in the milk shed. And as far as the pus in the milk, every cow gets somatic cell counts, and that's indication of a bacteria or an infection.
Mm-hmm.
It has probably increased with the use of the synthetic hormone, but when a cow is milked, it is first stripped. The first couple shots of milk come down and are not put into the milk tank or into what's taken to the dairy processing plants. So if there is anything there, the majority of it is gone. It's natural in all milk. It is removed through pasteurization. And, if people would see what happened with milk from the time it leaves the cow's tit till the time it gets into cheese or bottled milk, cottage cheese, whatever, they would be amazed and they would realize what a value milk products are. And those are the type of things we have to be talking about to help the Wisconsin farmer. I'll just listen. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. It all boils down to integrity of the product, Fred, and I know they go to great lengths to make sure that their integrity's there, but another problem is, I was just thinking as he's talking, is, Fred, when those cows that have been injected with that stuff, say they start becoming less they produce less, they get dumped on the market. How does the farmer that's buying that new cow, how does he know what that cow's been injected with? They need to have good records and papers that go along with those cows when they go to market. So what do you got there?
Well, this, incidentally, about that comic book, it's for school students in grades 3 to 6.
Where is that again? You want to hold that up again?
From
grades 3 to 6.
Yes.
Now that could probably be used in your private Christian schools and maybe Regis, but do you think it'll get into
Regis,
the public?
You wouldn't want it in Regis. That's a high school. You want it in an elementary school.
Are there any private elementary Catholic schools in town?
There are a few.
Okay.
One at Immaculate Conception, and there's at least 1 or 2 other ones.
Good.
And some of the Protestant churches have schools.
All right, Fred.
And give a good education.
That's right. There are some private schools, so they can get a hold of you off the air, Fred, since you're the president of the chapter. You want to give your phone number for people that might want to get some copies of that?
835-9702.
All right. Okay, Fred. But back on the BGH thing there, most farmers are not using it. They're kind of wait-and-see attitude, and I know they're trying to get some standards for these cows that get dumped on the market at sales at the barns and stuff, so good paperwork follows them on whether they've been injected with that stuff or not. And there is a hotline. I don't have the number right now, but it's out of Chippewa Falls, a hotline for farmers that are reporting problems from around the country with BGH. So, Fred, we're going to ask you one more question today because you're still batting 1,000, and as long as you're batting 1,000, we might as well keep asking you questions here. And this one I'm going to give you a tough one because this is from September 28th, but it's an old one. This is 1781, Fred. I know this is a few years before your time.
September 28, 1981.
1781.
1781.
All right. A famous general begins the siege of Yorktown, aided by French troops and the French Navy during the Revolutionary War. Who was that famous general?
General George Washington.
That's right. 1781, September 28th. General George Washington begins the siege of Yorktown. Isn't that something how the French sided with the rebels in that case? Since this was an English nation at that time, or an English colony. So that was interesting that the French sided with us to help. Okay, Fred, what do you got there on NYPD?
From the September issue, 1994, of the American Family Association Journal, and on page 3, it says, New York police were under orders to do nothing as they watched 2 homosexual pride parades, one of which featured a pedophile contingent and nude men and women during June's Stonewall 25 celebration. Now, it goes on to say, eyewitness report, a New York journalist, I watched almost half of the 2-hour parade, personally counted 7 totally naked marchers. 1 large contingent of lesbians repeatedly chanted the F word. Most of the marchers made obscene shouts and gestures, including even simulated intercourse as they passed St. Patrick's Cathedral. Other marchers were semi-nude, including bare-breasted women and men wearing only athletic shirts or athletic supports or fig leaf apparel.
Better take a drink there, Fred. I know that stuff's enough to choke a maggot. So what's that got to do with NYPD, or is that the police department, or is that the show, or?
Police department.
Okay.
Yeah. And incidentally, it was a real clergyman, an elderly Protestant minister, dressed in his clerical garb, holding a sign declaring that homosexual behavior is a sin, was standing quietly in Rockefeller Center viewing the parade. He was viciously attacked by gay marchers and thrown to the ground. Although hundreds of police officers were in the immediate vicinity, they made no arrest, no attempt to help him.
Well, you know, I was listening to William Kunstler the other night, and he says that's okay because that's mob mentality. It's okay, and people are full of rage, so it's okay for them to do that. That's his answer to it. And he was referring to a policeman that was murdered in a mob in New Jersey. And Kunstler said that was okay because the mentality at the time of the mob was rage, and so it was okay for them to kill the policeman.
Well, that's not right.
Well, Fred, that's amazing. That those marches are meant to incite people, you know, one way or the other. It's meant to get you to think about that issue, and that's why they go to those outrageous lengths to make sure that you see the parade in a certain light. And it's not just that one parade in New York. They do the same thing all over the country when they have those parades. We've showed footage on here of one of the parades. But anyway, Fred, getting back to epidemics, not only is India having problems, but you know what's happened in Rwanda. They're saying now that there could be as many as 1 million bodies, either above the ground or buried or in the rivers, river bottoms or lake bottoms, or have been properly buried or burned to kill the disease. But now the epidemics are moving in, Fred, and then the rainy season is moving in. So they're very fearful now that the same thing, the bubonic plagues and stuff, could start working in that area. But, you know, just before that terrible civil war and everything, Fred, there was 200,000 Rwandans were HIV positive back in '92. So now with the advent of this civil war, 75% of the health care workers were killed or fled. Only 25% of them came back in to help. And they're facing an enormous task because they have lack of funds, supplies, and equipment. Not only now because they need the blood transfusions very bad, you know, they've kind of looked the other way and they've taken blood from anybody and everybody. So now the AIDS, the HIV virus has been passed through all these thousands of blood transfusions. So there's going to be dozens or thousands of hundreds of thousands of new cases of HIV because of the contamination of the blood. In the city of Kilgally, 33% of all women were believed to be HIV positive. Well, they've all been scattered all over the countryside now, the ones that lived. Between 50 and 60% of the defeated army, mainly from the majority Hutu tribe, now in exile in Zaire, was estimated to be HIV positive. And so now they're talking about epidemic outbreaks could delay or even reverse the return of refugees and add an unbearable burden to people who have already suffered untold hardships. More than 1 million Rwandan refugees, mostly Hutus, are in the squalid camps in eastern Zaire. They're afraid to return home, and thousands of them, Fred, have been dying daily of disease. And now all the scary diseases are starting to crop up there just because of the unsanitary conditions. You put 1 million people together in these squalid camps, so you're going to have problems, Fred. Now it's showing up, and it's kind of the same situation that's going on in India. And because of lack of medicines and stuff, it's just horrible. So, Fred, if you've got something for 30 seconds, we're running out of time here.
Quarter of U.S. children living with one parent, and that's from the AFA Journal. Census Bureau report in July, 27% of the children under 18 lived with one parent, up from 12% in 1970. Some 35% of the children in single-parent situations lived with a never-married parent in 1993, nearly as many as 37% who lived with a divorced parent.
Okay, Fred. Well, thank you. All right, Fred, I want to remind people to call in to Penny Graham, 835-4900 or 836-5717. Ask her why she has decided that she is the one to eliminate myself and the other candidates from this upcoming debate, or call Terry Bell over Channel 13 and ask them why they are practicing censorship. I want to thank you for viewing, and make sure to tune in next Monday night, October 3rd. We'll have the head of the Wisconsin term limits on. Thank you very much. We'll see you again right here on the Cow Report next Monday night at 9 p.m. Good
Bye now.
afternoon.